welcome to our More Than Just a Picky Eater series. And this is our last episode or session for this academic year. I hope you have found this helpful in some way or form. Today we're going to talk about creating a positive feeding environment. So there were 4 pillars, and today we're going to do the last one, which is discover the power of words. The pillars that we were talking about, just as a quick refresher, included study your child, so understanding why your child could be behaving in a certain way when it comes to mealtime, and what could be some of the perceived difficulties from the child perspective that kind of leads the child to engage in difficult behaviors around mealtime. Then the next one was keeping the boundaries straight. So understanding who does what and when. What is the parent responsible for when it comes to mealtime and picky eating? And what is the child? What kind of control does the child have over mealtime and eating? So review that one if you haven't seen it. The other one is establishing structure and routine around mealtime, and also this is a very crucial step. It's truly a pillar when it comes to a child who's struggling with picky eating or extreme picky eating. And then last is to discover the power of words. So you're like, what is she talking about? The power of words? Is that sort of magic or something, or wishful thinking? Not exactly. So one old proverb that kind of helps understand what this is going to be about is this one. Gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. It kind of opens up the person and encourages them. It gives them confidence about them being able to participate, in this case in mealtime. So that is kind of sort of more of a poetic sum up of what the power of words can do with our children. But if you're not into poetic stuff and you want the technical stuff, here is the technical version of the power of words when it comes to picky eating. So K.A. Toomey is an expert in that field of picky eating. So she says, how we talk to our children during meals is very critical. The words we use need to be teaching words, meant to help our children learn what is that they need to be doing specifically at meals. Our goal is to advance the child without using questions or negative instructions, demands, or commands. Has this destroyed everything you've been doing? I kind of did with me. But it tells you that yes, your child may be having motor and sensory, there might be medical stuff going on, and that is all one area, one thing that we definitely need to deal with all the child factors. But don't forget that your words are going to play a part in your child's success to overcome that picky eating issue. So here are some of the key phrases that you could use to build the confidence and to teach your child how to be able to participate in eating. So the first one is you can. So instead of using can you, you're going to pose it as a statement. The statement gives confidence in your child. If you say can you, it implies that they might not be able to, so you're kind of implying lack of confidence in their ability to do whatever you're asking them to do, which is not helpful from the child's perspective. You can is also less interactive than a question during mealtime. It also reduces the likelihood of a power struggle, because sometimes we say can you and we really mean we're not really ready for a no, and what happens is they say a no because you just gave them the option to say no, and you're like, okay, well, that's not an acceptable answer, and now you're heading into a power struggle because you're expecting something, the child kind of thought that it's a free choice, but it's not, and everyone is now upset. If the child is objecting, you could respond, when you're ready, I believe you can. So again, it's just to help the child increase their confidence level to participate in mealtime. Other things you could say that will kind of use the statement if you can, that can help the child feel more confidence, is talk about others who also can. So I can, so and so, like a family member can. If you must ask a child, ask choice questions, and only when the child is not already eating. So you want to give a child an option of, let's say, a selection of things, items at the table, then you want to do that choice question before they're starting to eat. Because as I said, just if they're having good time and they're kind of showing interest in engagement, having that interruption may just throw them off. So it's good to just not risk it and just ask those questions before. So other things you could do, or say, is using educational language. So what do I mean by that? Now these are all coming from K.A. Tomy. So the goal of educational language is to teach the child the sensory properties of the food. So you're talking about the food, how it feels in your hand, how it feels when you put it in your mouth, how it breaks. Is it mushy? Is it crunchy? Is it does it dissolve in your mouth? Is it wet, dry? So those are the different physical property of the food. And then you could also, let's say you're introducing a new kind of, let's say you're introducing, I don't know, Fruit Loops as opposed to plain Cheerios, and you can kind of discuss similarities. Oh, it's crunchy. Well, and it's circles. It's kind of sweet. So you can compare it to something that the child is familiar with. This way, they're not feeling as intimidated when they're having to try something new. So here's how it kind of looks in action time. So be ready to explore the physical properties of food with hands and eyes. So you're not like, don't touch that, don't do that. It's the time now to explore the food visually and with touch. Name the food, discuss, as I said, the physical properties of the food. So the child kind of builds the anticipation of the child, what to expect when they put it in their mouth or when they touch it with their hand and so on. And talk about what is going to happen when the food gets in their mouth. Is it going to dissolve? Is it going to be feeling gooey and sticky? Is it going to be dry? It feels dry in your mouth. So those are some of those things you could discuss. If the child is still uneasy about even talking about the food, then you can talk about your food, your own food, and do the same steps. So you could do the manipulation of the food. You could put it and you kind of do like exaggerated movements with your mouth to kind of show the child what's going on. And you can use this approach during meal and snack time. So they're getting a lot of repetition. And that repetition helps them overcome their hesitance. If your child seems to be extra worried about the food due to sensory aversion or motor issue, demonstrate it to your child while you're describing how you're eating it. So this is really getting very explicit. We don't typically talk about, oh, you're going to be crunching it with your big molars at the back. Most cases, we don't need to do that. But for our picky eating kids, that's slightly different. So now we're taking that meal time to not only talk about the physical properties of the food and naming the food and so on, we're also talking about how you're chewing the food and what you're doing in your mouth to manage that kind of food and be able to swallow it successfully. So it could be like, you look worried about name the food. You can move it here, or you could cover it up. So that kind of gives them that ability to, okay, I don't have to do it today. However, now I'm taking over and I am doing what I was asking the child to do, and they can observe. So it's a little bit less effortful for the child. So it's not as a big of a step. So if it's a big step and they can't engage and they're showing signs, behavior signs that this is too intimidating, then that's when you are lowering the expectation even more and you are doing those steps. See how I can take a bite of my chips. Then I move it to my big back teeth and munch. So those are some of the descriptors that we use. Sometimes, and I did use that with some of my kids in the picky eating group, because they almost didn't know. It looks like as if I don't know what to do with that kind of food in my mouth. And they would like do weird things with their mouth, like they would hang their like kind of like in a mid stance position, and you're like, no, or they try and go back to sucking the food, and you're like, nope, you gotta munch, use your big teeth, move your food to the side. So this is a little bit, now it's a little bit more advanced than what I'm describing here, because now the child is actually participating. But you get the idea of how sometimes you need to really lower your expectations when you're dealing with a picky eater. And then take a bite. Now that if the child is participating, take a bite with your strong back teeth. So like kind of, let's say they're biting on a carrot and you're like, you can show them how they can do that with the bigger and stronger teeth. So the idea is to model and show them how they can manage certain textures and certain kind of foods. Okay, so things to watch for and try not to do because they would have a negative impact. So just like positive words can build, negative words can also destroy or destruct. So negative commands or statements, things like eat or else, threatening tone of voice. Those are things that will get the child to get upset or feel stressed. And we know that when the child is getting stressed, it actually will impact the physiology of their body and would make them feel less hungry. It suppresses their appetite. So that defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing. So if the whole purpose of doing those commands to get the child to eat, on the long run, it actually has the opposite effect. And I couldn't find a better word, but offending statements or commands. Take a bite already. And with an attitude, especially if you add the attitude part to it. Stop playing and just eat. Make the child, those are things that could make the child can feel silly and stupid. And the child perceives this as non-understanding and unempathetic. And again, that kind of erodes the relationship and kind of creates the tension and the stress around mealtime, which again won't be helpful if you're trying to get the child to feel confident and comfortable coming to the table and trying new things. You think about yourself. If you're feeling cranky and you're fearful, you're less likely to take a risk or a chance. But that's exactly what we're asking them to do, is to take a risk or take a chance at something that might feel overwhelming in their mouth, taste-wise or texture-wise. So you could kind of relate, if you try and think about it in how it looks like in an adult world, it helps us understand what the child might be experiencing. So other ways of communicating expectations, do, not, don't. Rule-based language communicates clear expectations. So when you give your child a specific command, they know exactly what's expected of them. As opposed to if you just say don't, they're like, okay, but now what? They don't have an idea, because remember, it's about skills that are lagging in the feeding departments, right? So now you're telling them don't, but you're not giving them a replacement of what they need to do or what they need to try and do. So say the desired behavior instead of a prohibiting negative behavior. For example, use your inside voice. If you don't like it, place it on the discard plate. So instead of don't throw the food, don't spit your food, or don't yell or scream, you can have those alternative behaviors. And it reduces the tension, it reduces the likelihood of power struggle. So we're still on how to communicate expectations. So avoid the don'ts. As I said, don'ts are interruptive to the meal, and it is likely to cause a power struggle. It's also a vague way of communicating expectation. It doesn't tell them what to do, and it doesn't provide them with an alternative behavior. And typically, we're doing this in response to something that is happening as opposed to proactively dealing with it. So child engages in a behavior and you're like reacting to that. As opposed to, you can communicate your expectations, and the chances of this happening again goes lower and lower, because now you are giving them a tool of what they can do when they, for example, don't like a food they're trying, and it's a new food they're trying, and now they don't like it, and they used to spit. But if you're giving that replacement behavior, you're also proactively addressing the issue of spitting in the future, because they will learn that skill of that they need to take it out, put it in the discard plate or a napkin, whatever you designate for as a replacement behavior for spitting. Here is our last parent activity, and I bet you can guess what it is. I want you to reflect on the language you've been mainly using during mealtime and kind of compare the kind of language that you've been using with the kind of language that was suggested here. If they align, great, super, you are on the right track. If they don't align, then are you willing to try that sort of different way of communicating your expectations or performance during mealtime? And then kind of think about it. Is it worth a try? Have you tried the other kind of language and wasn't really effective? So now you're ready to try this one. So kind of think about that and actually try it during mealtime and see how, as time goes by, how it affects your child's reaction and responses. Okay, so I think I kind of jumped a little bit ahead of myself here. So with your child, you're going to be trying to, if you're convinced and sold, this is the way I should be communicating my expectations or talking to my child during mealtime. Just recognize that changing old habits and establishing new ones takes time. So give yourself some grace too, because you are shifting the way you're talking and shifting the way you're communicating with your child. But practice and persist, and reflect on how, reflect on what you were doing and think, okay, well, what happened here that I couldn't, I went back to my old way of saying don't or getting upset or something like that. What happened? What triggered me here? And that way you could help to kind of readjust the way you're approaching things, and reduces the chances of you reverting back to your old way of communicating in old language. And then, do you notice any difference in your child reaction to positive language? So even if there are minor changes, little steps, kind of acknowledge that and kind of give yourself the credit that you've tried hard and now it seems like some fruit is coming up. And then also acknowledge the child's success, because it's a two-way thing, right? So you're working hard and the child is working too. So you can, if they're using the whatever replacement behavior, yep, you need to tell them, I saw that, good for you, keep up the good work, and so on. So that is the sort of the child-parent activity that you could do. So this is the end of our series. It's the last session of the year, as I said at the beginning. Practice those 4 pillars. Those are things that are within hand that you could do at home, and you don't necessarily need the therapist to direct you in it. That said, if you have any questions, even though this is the last website update, you can still email us up till the end of the school year. So continue to practice those 4 pillars throughout the summer, and then also include sensory play and food exposure. Those are things that kind of help complete that puzzle for your picky eater, because they're getting desensitized in an indirect way to the different textures of different material. despair. You can still ask us questions, and as I said, we are still receiving emails and checking our emails till the end of the year. So that's a good time to try and do some of that at home and practice that and see what kind of roadblocks you encounter, and then you could kind of use the time remaining and then email us and tell me the kind of roadblocks that you're encountering. Maybe you can do some problem solving before summer comes and everyone is, you know, gone and you're all by yourself. So thank you for listening. Hope you found this helpful and enjoy your summer.